The Fellowship of the Great Physician welcomes you to House Call. Our hosts today are doctors of chiropractic, Dr. Gerald Lala and Dr. Richard Jensen, who is also a board-certified acupuncturist, practice independently in North Oaks, Minnesota. And Dr. David Schwietert practices in Rapid City, South Dakota. Let's join our hosts for today's program that will assist you in your quest for optimum health and well-being.
Welcome to House Call. I'm Dr. Gerald Lala.
I'm Dr. David Schwietert.
I'm Dr. Richard Jensen.
Wonderful to have you with us in House Call, improving your DNA. What is that now? Bad breath or something, or body odor? No, DNA,
Nucleic acid.
Nucleic acid. Wow. Woo, nucleic acid. Is that a vitamin?
No.
No, it's not a vitamin. Acid. It's an amino acid?
It's amino acid.
What is an amino acid?
What's a protein?
A protein. Wow.
Smart guys, huh?
We have essential proteins.
It's sugar too.
It's a sugar too? Ribose. Yep. And we have non-essential amino acids. We've done programs on that, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Well, today we're going to talk about the building blocks of the body. And you can see what a weightlifter I am, you know.
Scary.
Figure out that I haven't been taking any steroids, you know. So anyway, what are proteins? Proteins come in two forms. So do amino acids. Animal and vegetable, they all are comprised of amino acids. They are the genetic basis or building blocks of all living matter, which affect the biochemical activities of our body. In other words, they affect both health as well as disease. So if we have healthy amino acids, we're going to have health. If we have diseased or unhealthy amino acids, we're going to have health problems. Protein, therefore, is an integral to the development of growth, energy, and maintenance of health as well as healing. It is necessary in the formation of hormones and antibodies, while others influence the functions of muscles, give strength to bones. You have to have amino acids in your bones. You got to have proteins in your bones. You take all the calcium in the world, it won't help you if you don't have the right amount of amino acids. They aid in the clotting of blood. They are very influential in maintaining fluid balance. So people who have edema, there's some protein or amino acid problems there. They are very involved in your metabolism. Therefore, if you're not able to gain or hold your weight, that's assuming you're not an anorexic or a bulimic, or if you're gaining too much weight, or you can't get it off when you diet, sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, all of the times, amino acids are involved and every other physiological activity of the body. So proteins, the building blocks of the body, are very important, and we're going to look at them in some unique and contemporary and very modern and scientific ways. So Dr. Schwietert now is going to talk specifically about DNA and RNA.
Thank you, Dr. Lala. Amino acids contain oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, phosphorus, and 19% nitrogen. And these are all elements that make up DNA and RNA. Fats and carbohydrates only contain about 16% nitrogen. So the outside of the DNA molecule, desoxyribonucleic acid, also contains genetic information in which enzymes play important roles in the body. Now, these healthy enzymes have the ability to detect a basic chemical structure inside of what is referred to as these twin peptide spines of the double helix, which are linked to one another by pairs of these four chemical bases: adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, upon which our genetic code resides. Dr. Jensen, what's next?
Thank you, Dr. Schwietert. Well, the human genome is next. Recent advances in biochemistry have developed analytical systems that decode the genetic characteristics of DNA, which identifies the genetic makeup of everything in nature. These studies have shown that there are 30,000 or so genes in the human genome, which can be programmed into microarrays and used to profile the characteristic nature and pattern of genetic activity. When healthy, The enzymes travel along the helix looking for pairs of damaged cells and play roles in repair. When that fails, mutations occur, predisposing the cells to abnormal changes that are apparent at conception and or become evident at various stages of life, resulting in disease. As potentially important as continued identification and research with reference to the possibilities of changed abnormal genomes, we can still positively influence our genes through good nutrition. Taking specific food supplements based on scientific testing will never change a genome, but they can positively influence with the hope that potential negative effects will be reduced or minimized. So when we look at our DNA, they say that, oh, it's in my genetics, I just have predisposition towards this or for that. Well, they say that, that DNA or genetics is the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So we can do many things to help where the genetics have dealt us a raw deck of cards or a raw deal. There's a lot of stuff in our lifestyle that can help change that and augment the positives rather than the negatives. So what's next, Dr. Sweetert?
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. That's really good news. I want to reemphasize it, that even though we've been dealt the cards that we were born with or acquired through our lifestyle, that we can positively influence what we've been dealt with. So that's the good news. Let's talk about essential and non-essential amino acids. Essential means that they must come into the body from a food source, while other amino acids that are non-essential can be synthesized or manufactured within the body from other proteins that we ingest. Essential amino acids include L-isoleucine, valine, L-valine, L-threonine, L-tryptophan, L-leucine, L-methionine, and L-phenylalanine. When digested, every amino acid gives off chemical byproducts. Of course, if you burn gas, you're going to get carbon dioxide and other pollutants as well as carbon monoxide, which our bodies use for cellular growth, tissue repair, and other vital biochemical activities essential for health and well-being. As important as amino acids are, one can consume excessive quantities. In other words, you can take too much or ingest too many, which will predispose you to health problems, gout being one of them. ChemScreen laboratory analysis of the blood, of the serum, amino acid analysis, and organic acid analysis are windows that afford us an opportunity to evaluate what levels of amino acids there are, the activities as they relate to the functions of the GI tract, intestinal dysbiosis, the liver, kidneys, brain, nervous system, cerebrospinal fluids, enzymes, oxidation, or another word would be aging, sleep disorders, fatigue, homeostasis, blood sugar, and certain vitamins, minerals, and hormones. Boy, doesn't that cover the whole gamut. I don't think there's anything left out of that.
Nope.
So, Dr. Lala, what about amino acid transport?
Amino acid transport, we're talking about amino acids, which are, when you break down proteins correctly in the body, they release amino acids. And what we're going to do is bring up a little pamphlet for you that if you really want to know about amino acids and the things that we're talking about here, you want to call that telephone number on the screen and we will make sure that you receive this. Postage paid, no charge, no telephone calls or anything like that. So quantitative amino acid analysis, and it's basically taken from the script that we're using here on television. Alrighty, so let's talk about amino acid transport. People think when they take vitamins and minerals and they eat foods with vitamins and minerals and carbohydrates and fats and proteins in them, that they just go down into their stomach and they're digested, and then they go into their small intestine, and then they're absorbed and they go out to your organs and your bones and your muscles and your ligaments. That's not the way it is. What happens is when those foods are properly digested in the stomach and then moved on into the proximal end of the small intestine, and then, which those are acid environments or acid pH, then they're moved on, hopefully correctly, into the distal end of the small intestine or the duodenum, where it is more of an alkaline pH or a higher pH, and then they have to be chelated or bound to amino acids. And it is those amino acids are proteins, that transport those chemicals to our tissues. So let's talk about that then. Another vital function of amino acids is the transport of hormones, vitamins, minerals, antibodies, and other important chemical elements from the small intestine through our arterial blood system, not venous, to vital cells and organs. Therefore, if there is a problem in one's diet, in one's digestion, in assimilation, and or the transport of those chemicals and those elements by their amino acids, sooner or later, health events will become evident, such as hormone problems, bone problems, that would include like osteoporosis, osteopenia, arthritis, fibromyalgia, blood sugar problems such as hyperglycemia or hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, and related problems that are quite often accumulative in effect. In other words, this amino acid issue doesn't necessarily show up overnight. So the big D, Dr. David Sweetert, is going to talk about the percentages of protein intake that are vital now. So you really want to catch this.
Now we're talking about the average healthy adult, and of course, if you fit into that basis, about 10 to 30% of your diet should consist of good quality protein. Age, health, exercise activities will either increase or decrease the protein needs that your body has. It's estimated that the minimum protein intake for healthy adults is about 0.8 grams per 2.5 pounds of body weight, which totals 45 grams of protein. And of course, there's vegetable and animal, and we'd like to think that a lot of people need more of the vegetable protein. For an adult female who might weigh between 125 pounds and 62 grams of protein for a male who might weigh 170 pounds. Now, that would be just under normal lifestyle and daily living. But if there are injuries, such as trauma, sicknesses and illnesses, heavy exercise, or emotional stress, the average per day intake should be increased. And a lot of times we think the easiest way to do that would be with a pre-digested amino acid capsule that it is in the right ratio for your bioindividuality.
But again, if we don't know what their amino acids levels are, we don't know what amino acids they need.
That's right.
And which ones could be eventually harmful to them.
That's right. So if, this is the case where to see is to know and to not see is to guess. And you don't really want to guess with your health, do you? I mean, you don't want to put yourself into distress or trouble just because you didn't investigate a little bit further, and that's why these pamphlets that you can order and call up and get will help you make that determination so you can be a more informed consumer. Now, Dr. Jensen's going to tell us about wasting.
Thank you, Dr. Sweetert. Well, wasting is when a person beyond 60 years of age or a person who has been sick, there tends to be an increased need for proteins. Where a person is not receiving adequate intake of protein, they develop a wasting appearance. This is exemplified by the loss of mean muscle mass, weight, and or shape, particularly of the face and overall anatomy. They appear drawn. There may also be an excessive accumulation of fat, mostly in the internal organs, but often externally in the abdomen as well. So then what we come to is cannibalization. Very often, where there is inadequate dietary intake of protein, the body will begin to cannibalize itself. Take the protein from other places within the body to use that for the organs that are most important. It uses stored protein for energy, which will externally appear as wasting. Other symptoms of protein deficiency include weakness, fatigue, lowered immunity, portal cirrhosis, or a fatty liver, excess fluid retention, dehydration, or grade 2 or adult onset diabetes, osteopenia, osteoporosis, and other preventable age-related health problems.
Let's take a minute then and look at some slides with reference to osteoporosis, okay?
Okay.
Osteopenia is a precursor to osteoporosis, And if that is not arrested and treated correctly and naturally, it turns into osteoporosis. So Dr. Jensen now has a couple vertebrae up there in front of you, and you're looking at them from a side angle, and he's going to discuss them with you now.
Okay, so what we have is from the side angle. We have the vertebrae from the side, and oh, here we go, here's the cursor. What we have are these angles from the side. This is the vertebral body here that the cursor is going along, the little arrow. This is where most of the weight goes through the spine, is right through this area, about 2/3 through this area and 1/3 through this area. So they both need to be able to support the weight, but the most of the weight is right here. The disc in between the two vertebral bodies here is like a hydrostatic mechanism that helps hold up the weight through the moisture of those discs. And we should also realize that at the beginning of the day, we're normally about 1/4 of an inch taller than we are at the end of the day, just because gravity pushes out some of that moisture from these discs. In between here now, we have this yellow piece coming out through this hole. This is called the vertebral foramina, and this vertebral foramina is what passes out nerves, arteries, lymphatics, veins, particularly if one of these vertebrae become malaligned. Usually the first thing that it impinges on is the vasculature that's coming through there, and then comes the nerve. So we can have a decreased blood supply to the spinal cord at that point, and making changes throughout that, giving you decreased function throughout the spinal cord at multiple levels. So these things become much more important than just right here. So then let's look at this whole segment here. As we cut it in half and look at another model from there, we have a normal vertebrae here on top, and the outside part of this vertebrae, it's called the cortical area. The cortical section of it is thick, and the inside here, which is the trabecular area, which I have outlined here, that is also quite dense in that area, which gives us a good structure for holding that weight as to what the function of this bone is. We have a good formed disc in between, and then what happens is we also start to find that though this area is dense back here, when we have osteoporosis, or in this case osteopenia, which is shown in the middle, we start to have a decrease in the thickness of the cortical bone, which we see as the outside here. We see that not just in this area that we feel is critical for weight bearing, but we see it back in these posterior elements as well. So there's a thinning of the bone, and when we have a thinning of the bone, we start to have a weakening of that bone. And as you can see up here, this is nice and straight through here. But as we get down to the second bone here, we're starting to see a slight curvature there. And that's because a lot of the structure is being displaced, it's being removed in the calcium, and therefore causing weakness, and therefore microfractures occurring across here, so that this is bowing up, and it's bowing even further down here. This condition down in the bottom, you can see that there's much less density in the trabecular area. It's very thin in the cortical area, in the cortical bone, and we have a lot of microfractures taking place in here. And if this continues, you might even have a complete collapse of this vertebral body here as well. And when that happens, you certainly, if you haven't had postural deformities occurring at this stage where the spine is changing, you're certainly going to have them in this stage, and that's where you start to see these postural changes where people have humped backs and so forth. Then, as we go to another slide here, it shows us the anatomy of an osteoporotic fracture, because bones are not only created from having a protein matrix for which the calcium is pushed into. What you have is a diagram over here of the protein matrix within the hip bone or the upper leg bone, where we have, it's woven in here, this matrix of protein is woven in here, but you see in the center here, there's an empty space. an empty space right there. And if we look at a cross section of a bone, we have that empty space right in here. If you can see that, I circle it. That empty space right there. And so that doesn't have any protein in there. And guess what? If we start to remove too much calcium, there will be nothing there. Nothing at all. And so if we look at this x-ray where there is no calcium and no protein in this area, this is why, since it's a weight-bearing bone, we'll have spontaneous fracture right through the neck of the femur here. And so this causes a lot of problems in the elderly where they'll have a spontaneous fracture, which causes them to fall down. And guess what? That means that they've got to have the femur pinned, which they put a pin in through here to try to help that, or sometimes a hip replacement is called for in this case. Any further thoughts, Dr. Lala?
No, I think it might be a good idea to have Dr. Sweeter talk about food supplements and complete amino acids. Huh?
Thank you, Dr. Lala. There are countless amino acid food supplements, of course, and products available that are without prescription, but not all are complete amino acid products. There are pharmaceutical grade and food grade products that are out on the market. Let's talk about the pharmaceutical grade. They're formulated to contain all the essential amino acids in their proper biochemical ratio. You remember we stated earlier that if things are imbalanced, that it creates stress within the body, and the body has to deal with that stress in certain ways. What we want to do when we look at a pharmaceutical grade product is make sure, again, that these biochemical ratios are in balance. Well, how would we know that? Because when we do analysis and blood tests, urine tests to find out what these levels are, it gives us an indication of what levels you need to supplement or in your diet. Many food supplement manufacturers advertise that their products contain all the essential amino acids in their proper ratio. But because the Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, for the most part does not regulate the food industry and supplement manufacturers, the ingredients in the products, their chemical ratios, as well as what they have listed on their label, surprise, are not always true. Thus, the only food supplements that have their proper chemical ratios are those that are classified as pharmaceutical grade, meaning that the manufacturer has submitted their product to independent laboratory analysis and that the results of the testings have substantiated their ingredient claims. So I think that's probably the most important thing that you could take away from one of the important things from the show today, is that just because it says it on the label doesn't mean it's necessarily so. Dr. Jensen.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeter. Well, we're looking at the potential biological value. Like all food supplements, amino acids vary in content, quality, and chemical ratios. The way the product is assembled determines its potential biochemical value. Only complete amino acid products have proper biological value, meaning that because the essential amino acids are in the product in proper biochemical ratio, they also provide the correct amount of nitrogen. Nitrogen content varies with the type of amino acids in the food supplement. This is important as nitrogen plays a significant role in the body's ability to correctly utilize amino acids. So if we look at some of these biological values in proteins, we look at some of them that we find in food products is lactalbumin, or which is also known as whey, and they have a biologic value of 104. The egg has 100%, like we were talking about. Eggs have a wonderful value for bioavailability of protein. Cow's milk is 91%, beef 80, fish 79, casein 77, soy is at 74, potato at 71, rice at 59, wheat at 54, and beans at 49.
So legumes then do not have as much biological value, for example, as lactalbumin or whey, right?
No, that's certainly not.
How about, do any people have cytotoxic reactions?
Well, they sure do, and what we've found is that non-hormone based animal proteins, including meat, eggs, fish, are classified as complete proteins. Vegetable-based proteins, including seed, grains, nuts, are incomplete proteins and therefore have a lower biological value, as Dr. Jensen just showed us. One should also keep in mind that all foods have some varying degree of digestibility, meaning that some proteins are easier to hydrolyze or break down than others. We should also keep in mind that every human being has varying food sensitivities. Some of it we acquire through our diet, some of it we are born with genetically. We eat these foods that our immune system interprets as foreign and therefore produces white blood cells which attack and attempt to destroy this protein-based antigen in the food. Some food sensitivities are recognized while others, and I might say most, are unrecognized. But all cause cytotoxic or antigen-antibody reactions. Many of these reactions predispose individuals to health problems and also go unrecognized as a cause of an individual's health problems. Dr. Lala?
We mentioned whey, so let's take a look here a little bit more at whey. Whey is one of the protein ingredients found in milk. 80% of cow's milk is casein, while 20% is whey. The human mother's milk contains 70 to 80% whey. Isn't that interesting? Whey contains several ingredients, including immunoglobulins, lactoferrin, and lactoalbumin. Lacto, of course, refers to milk. Lactoalbumin is the principal ingredient in whey. Usually pharmaceutical-grade casein-based whey amino acid products contain 1/2 to 1% of casein and 5% lactose. Therefore, they are much safer and more tolerable than for those who have lactose intolerance. But again, when you have a combined food allergy test that measures your antigens and your antibody reactions to antigens, many times they will have a lactose intolerant, and when a good food allergy lab will also check for whey, correct?
That's right.
So, lactoalbumin then is that protein aspect of milk which consists of albumin, the most important of all amino acids. Lactoferrin is the iron capacity of milk. Right?
That's right.
Exactly. So how about if you finish on right there? We're talking about immunoglobulins.
Well, as we kind of bring it to a close, we've covered a lot of material today. We're going to ask you if you have an interest in learning more information from us, give us a call on the phone number or write us at the address at the end of the show, because we really want to bring you the best scientific-based information today that's available so that you can make an informed choice. Really, the Bible says that we're destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And what we want to do is give you information and knowledge so that you can make a choice that's best for you. And that's what's exciting about bringing it to you. Dr. Lala.
That's what's exciting. There are many aspects to health. Certainly it's the physical realm, the emotional realm, the spiritual realm, and the biochemical realm. And we hope that we've added a little bit more to your quest for whole person health, longevity, and a healthy, long, and prosperous life. So we look forward to having you with us next week as we will take this subject even to greater heights. Remember, Jesus loves you. He really does.
The Fellowship of the Great Physician, through its School of Health and Healing, provides classes each Thursday evening. The primary focus of these classes is biblically based spiritual health and healing, with a brief teaching on physical health and healing. There is no charge or registration fee for these classes, but a free will offering is received. For further information on the School of Health and